Welcome everyone to 3 Count Commentaries. I am MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to talk about Sarah Stock and the criticisms that Sarah Stock is facing because she dared to criticize a man being drowned on a pay-per-view event. She got into a feud with Amanda Huber, the wife of Brody Lee. They went back and forth. We're going to go through some of that today. I'm not going to be able to read everything because there was pretty extensive number of people mad at her and varying arguments being had. But we're going to at least get through the Sarah Stock Amanda Huber stuff because that's pretty important. But we're going to start at the beginning with people being mad at Sarah Stock because they cannot read and because they don't believe that there's any legitimate criticisms to AEW. That's something that's been said on this channel going back 4 or 5 years. Let's start at the beginning. Jon Moxley attempts to drown Darby Allin during the I Quit match at Wrestle Dream on October the 18th. The next morning, Sarah Stock tweets out, "You know who should stop this? Mothers with their remote control. This is worse than the plastic bag over the head. Kids are going to end up dead trying this stuff at home." The very first 3 sentences here, you know who should stop this? Mothers with their remote control. Meaning that mothers should control what their children are watching. What do you think 99% of the complaints have been? Well, it ain't up to AEW to parent your kids for you. She literally didn't say that. Your problem is that you're illiterate. You didn't read the statement. You saw someone should stop this, and then you just immediately jumped in. She didn't even say someone should stop this. She says, you know who would stop this? Mothers with their remote control. She's talking about, for starters, she's acknowledging that there is a line that has been crossed, which most AEW fans don't even get that far. They don't even recognize that there's a bright line of things that you should not be doing on a wrestling show. We're going to talk about that later. But she got into it with Amanda Huber because some fans attacked her for talking about AEW and children. So she posted a video of Amanda Huber. And in this picture, and in that video, Amanda Huber is talking about AEW and the children seeing wrestlers as role models. So Amanda Huber then responded, "Want to know what my kids, because I have kids, were doing at midnight last night? Sleeping. Want to know why? Because they're kids. My wrestling loving kids. Want to know what they weren't watching? A match between 2 performers who are known for taking things to the extreme. Want to know why? Because it's my responsibility as a parent to know what they're consuming. It's cool though. I'll let them watch some old TNA stuff and they can learn to choke each other out with a belt, since that's what's cool because checks notes, Tix looks great." This was one of her many responses to Sarah Stock. And we're going to talk about her other response later. Obviously, she's saying Sarah Stock does not have children, which I don't think she does. And then the second part is she's talking about how her kids were asleep at this time of night, even though she's let her son get in the ring. I don't think you shouldn't jump into this one, Amanda. You let your son get in the ring. You know, you've let him be -1 on television. And it's probably not a good idea for you to do that. Amanda Huber then also responded by saying, "This was at midnight on a pay-per-view. Meanwhile, when you were working, you choked another woman out with a belt. Where was the outrage over kids trying that? And you want to quote tweet a video of me talking about kids' grief to defend you being a hypocrite? Fuck all the way off." Let's put a pause on this. There is a video of Sarah Stock when she was in TNA. She was strangling some other young woman, I don't remember who it was, with a belt. That's fake, right? It's obviously fake. She wasn't really even choking her. 99% of that is acting. You can even see the girl having her hands over the belt so it doesn't actually constrict her breathing. That's acting. That's drama. That's what wrestling is. When you look at Jon Moxley's, when his head hands rather, takes Darby's head and dips it underwater, Darby's head is literally underwater. Okay? And it's a see-through fish tank. You can see his head underwater. It's not a magic trick. All right? That's the difference between somebody who's working and somebody who's not. Now, was Darby going to drown? No. They weren't going to actually drown him. It was to get the effect. Darby can hold his breath long enough to survive that. That's not the point, though. The point is, it's extreme. It's too far. People are drawing a line in the sand. It's too far. Somebody acting like they're choking somebody else is acting. Somebody literally putting somebody else's head beneath the water, while that's also acting, their head is literally underwater, which means that he could literally inhale water. You're not really going to get strangled with that belt. All that stuff you see is the person acting like they're being choked. Darby Allin's head is literally wet. All right? His head is literally underwater. Completely different ball game. Now, Sarah Stock responds to that last statement by saying, "You're exposing your ignorance." Amanda Huber responds by saying, "What ignorance? Please educate me on your expertise when it comes to children or parenting." Sarah Stock responds, "Ignorance to how the industry works. No need to get hysterical. Not surprised, though. The first day I met you, you spent the entire ride in a tizzy tearing down Sting's daughter and Tony Khan for allowing her to, quote, take your spot in AEW Outreach." Oh boy, she's getting very, very catty. It's extremely catty going on here. Very catty. Amanda Huber was responding to somebody else and said, quote, "Sarah Stock is suddenly in her Helen Lovejoy era, screaming, 'Won't someone think of the children?' and decided to use a video of me working with the Kids Grief Center to defend her bullshit." I don't know how long this went on back and forth, but that's essentially the crux of the argument. Amanda Huber didn't like that Sarah Stock used her as an example of a parent bringing their children to AEW where they're drowning people and setting people on fire, etc. Now, I do agree that maybe she shouldn't have used Amanda as a example because Amanda did work there, but Amanda is also in the extreme. Her son is a participant sometimes, even though he's under the age of 18. He is a participant sometimes in the wrestling show. His dad was a wrestler. Very different from a lot of other children out there whose father are not wrestlers, and they're mimicking what they see. And that's a large part of what Sarah Stock's point is children are going to mimic what they see. And there's been a whole lot of wrestlers, a whole lot of podcasters, a whole lot of tweeters who have complained that AEW is not for children. It doesn't promote itself as being a children's product. In fact, it's TV-14. They've even gone so far as to say, well, this is the ridiculous thing, it was on a midnight on a pay-per-view, as if that matters. You think they're not going to show highlights? You're not going to see this on Twitter? It's not going to be up on Instagram? The kids are not going to be able to see this anywhere. They can only see it on a midnight at a pay-per-view. Come on, man. Don't insult my intelligence. All right? I'm not even saying whether they should do it or not. But don't tell me that it was okay to do because it was on a midnight on a pay-per-view. As if they don't replay this stuff. As if people don't clip this stuff and post it elsewhere. Get out of here with that. My kids were asleep where they should be. And then they opened up Twitter the next morning and saw a man getting drowned at 10 o'clock in the morning while they're eating fucking Fruit Loops. Come on, man. You're trying to, you're offending me now. I don't want to hear that. We're talking about the act itself. Should the act itself have even occurred? And the answer is no. Because there is a bright line that should not be crossed. Attempted murder is too far. Now, Sarah Stock isn't even saying that attempted murder is too far. She said, and she reiterated this later on. Anytime I see attempted murder in wrestling without a disclaimer, regardless of the company, my opinion remains the same. It's dumb. Well, I can even just delete the part where it says without a disclaimer. It should be ridiculous and dumb anyway. Right? It should be ridiculous anyway, whether you do an attempted murder on a wrestling show. But it is what it is. Can't do anything about that. But she's specifically saying there should be some kind of disclaimer on AEW. And she's saying that mothers should control what their children are watching. The problem is these people are so emotional, they're so illiterate, and they're so offended because there's no such thing as legitimate criticisms of AEW that they started yelling at her. And now there's countless Twitter accounts and podcasters, etc., mad at Sarah Stock for daring to criticize AEW. Edited Mongo here. As I was recording, Amanda Huber dropped some personal text messages she had with Sarah Stock. So I'm going to take a pause. And we're going to go into that. Then we're going to get back to the rest of the video. So Amanda she tweeted and said, I text Sarah before I tweeted. Her reply was that I need to be tougher. So there's a screenshot of the text exchange between Sarah Stock and Amanda Huber. Now, before this, they seemed like they were on pretty good terms. And then Amanda text to Sarah saying, quote tweeting a video of me talking about kids with grief to defend your bullshit is piece of shit behavior. I expected better of you. How fucking disappointing. Sarah Stock replied, you gotta be a little tougher than that, Amanda. One tweet should not send a person into curse-filled hysteria. Amanda replied, you exploited my words about grief to defend being a hypocrite and lecture me on composure? You're not tough. You're pathetic. And she's not even left on red. It just says delivered. There's nothing there that even says that Sarah Stock read that tweet. I mean, the response. I'm getting the tweets and the text all mixed up. God damn. But on Twitter, Sarah Stock says, I called her hysterical because of the reactive and profanity-laden message she left me. It's hysterical. So she's saying that Amanda Huber is hysterical. And I actually see both sides of this issue, if we're being honest. She should not have used Amanda Huber's video. And Amanda Huber should not be sending, these crazy messages to Sarah. It's not that big a deal. If you had an issue, then yes, you should send her a text message and you guys hash it out. And then posting the text on social media for everybody to see. I think that's just number one corny behavior. When people are screenshotting texts to be made public. It's one thing to screenshot text because you're going to bring it up later. And you're like, I don't want the algorithm or whatever, the machine to eat this up in 90 days or whatever. And you want to bring it up later. Or you try to get somebody to remember something. That's one thing. But to almost screenshot some real shit that I said, and then I'm going to post it. Okay, well, you might as well keep going. You might as well go ahead and post her response, and then post your response to her response, and keep going. You don't let us in the conversation and then tell us, okay, you've seen enough. No, don't do that. Show us the whole thing. Don't tease us. Anyway, another one of the many attacks on the character of Sarah Stock is that she was fired from WWE. Now, I forgot about this, but it was 5 years ago, actually. And she was fired because she got arrested for resisting law enforcement, disorderly conduct, and public intoxication about alcohol. It was in October of 2020. She was released. She was on furlough due to the COVID-19 cutbacks. So she wasn't fired because she was bad at her job. She was furloughed over COVID-19, and she's actually fairly young. She's only like 46 or something like that, so she's not that old. So she went to work for AEW apparently after that, and she worked for AEW until I believe April of 2025. She was in AEW when they did the plastic bag spot, which she said was worse. Well, not as bad as the fish tank spot. So, I mean, look, all these personal attacks are being made because she dared to criticize AEW. Apparently, if you wrestled in the business, you're not allowed to criticize AEW at all. Apparently, if you watch the wrestling companies, you're not allowed to criticize AEW at all. Look, everybody has seen weird stuff happen in wrestling. We all have. And we all have problems with some of the things we've seen. People refusing to draw a line somewhere and be consistent with that line is a part of the problem here. So, look, people are going to be okay with this stuff. All right. There's just nothing you can do about it. We've tried to argue with wrestling fans forever. These fans of the Attitude Era, a lot of these old gray beards, they're still running around saying how great the Attitude Era was and how great all of these other eras were. Like, you have to realize, man, this world today is not the world of 25 years ago. And even 25 years ago, and we've talked about it extensively on this channel, it hurt their business to do all of that stuff. All the hypersexual and hyper violence they were doing in the Attitude Era actually hurt business. I just did an article a couple of days ago talking about how PG turned their business around. They had an incredible amount of trouble finding advertisers for the product when they were raking in viewers. Nobody was wanting to invest in the product. Nobody wanted to invest in the show. This, of course, is what led to them going to Spike. You know, they almost got kicked off of UPN because parent councils or whatever was getting together and filing FCC reports. Look, as a fan, you, of course, are going to say it was fun, it was great, yada, yada. I agree with you on that. As a person who's analyzing the business, however, these things should be avoided. When Vince did the spot with Jake the Snake Roberts and the snake bite, it aired live. People saw it live in the building. People freaked the fuck out. They freaked out. And then WWE started censoring it from that point forward. They showed highlights of it, but they censored it on television so that people wouldn't see it. And you can guess why, right? Because they can't air that shit on television, right? Now, we did end up getting an uncensored version of it later on, but it was clear, at least to Vince, that if you're running a child-friendly product, you can't have a man get bit by a snake and air it on live television or air it on television where people can see it. It's not going to happen. It's bad for business. These things affect your sponsors. It affects your networks. It affects everybody. It's not just you at this point. It's not just you and the fans having fun in the backyard somewhere. This stuff is being beamed across the world. There used to be a time where if you did some stuff like this, they would pull you from the air. I'm glad we've moved beyond that. And there's still a lot of moral busybodies out there. A lot of them have moved to the internet. They're trying to censor the internet and all this sort of stuff. But I don't take seriously any critiques from people who got upset because they showed Alexa Bliss's shoulders during a promo segment 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even longer. And now all of a sudden, just a little bit of heterosexuality, they spaz out and start losing sleep over it. But then they want hyper violence, which is nonsense. I'm not losing any sleep about that. I think that the criticism that Sarah Stock is getting is legitimate. But I think that her criticism is also legitimate. And I said 5 years ago that there is no legitimate criticisms of AEW. They will delegitimize every legitimate criticism because they don't know how to take criticism. I mean, just compare the criticisms of WWE compared to criticisms of AEW. Whenever WWE does something that's clearly over the line, you will eventually get somebody saying it was over the line. When they did Katie Vick, pretty much everybody universally was like, okay, that was way over the line. It was completely unnecessary. We didn't need to do that. When Foley got hit in the head 20 times with a steel chair, people was like, okay, maybe that was a bit much. We need to chill on that. We don't need to do that. Foley talked about himself being chewed out by Vince for doing the spot at the Hell in a Cell match where he went off the top of the cage and when he went through the cage. Vince told him never do anything like that again because he knew it was over the line. Years later, guys like Jim Ross or Bruce Pritchard would say, look, we went over the line. A guy like JBL would say, look, we went over the line. The talent would say it. The bosses would say it. Each one of them would say, look, we try to be creative. We cross the line sometimes, and then we correct ourselves. That's how it is. AEW doesn't. The fans don't. Tony Khan doesn't even acknowledge these sorts of things. You would think that Tony Khan would at some point be sat down by somebody and asked, why do you continuously allow this guy to put plastic bags over somebody's head, to drown somebody in the middle of your ring? Why do you allow that? And nobody, not a single person, has ever sat down Tony Khan to ask him why he allows this stuff to happen. But when WWE was saying suck it, and they were, putting people through tables, lighting tables on fire, they were powerbombing grandmas through a table, you saw Vince sitting there with Bob Costas getting shredded over this thing. And it's one of everybody's favorite things when Vince got frustrated about Bob Costas asking him tough questions. Nobody ever asked Tony Khan tough questions. Nobody ever lobbies any tough criticism towards AEW for the product that they put out. There's never any conversation. The fans form like Voltron, like the fucking Megazord around them and say, it's okay. It doesn't matter what it is. It's okay. But it's not okay. You go too far. It's okay to say, you know what? Maybe this was unnecessary. And she worked as an agent there. Okay? Again, other people who have worked as agents in other places. Arn Anderson, for instance, has come out and said some things that they did in WWE, they went too far. And acknowledged it. AEW doesn't. They don't even try to. They don't even consider it. There is no such thing as legitimate criticisms of AEW. AEW is allowed to do whatever they want because there's a different set of standards for AEW. They'll say we're not a PG product, which technically is true, but at the same time claim that they want families and they're pricing their tickets for families, which is nonsense. There's such different standards for everything. Sexuality in NXT, oh my God, it's a porno, versus Mina Shirakawa shaking her tits as soon as she comes out. Toni Storm talking about eating women out. She actually buries her face in Mercedes Moné's crotch. No comment. Nobody sat down with Tony Khan and said, hey, why are these women so sexual on your wrestling show? Nobody asked that question. Nobody sat him down and said, why is Toni Storm's character that she's a hyper bisexual lesbian character? Like, why is that the case? No comment. No, nothing. Nobody even asks. Nobody even bothers to ask. Why is Mina Shirakawa a stripper? Nobody asked. Nobody cares. So the idea that people care about these things is fake. It's all fugazi. It's kayfabe. It's bullshit. It's not real. Now, Sarah Stock, to her credit, she was talking about parents and mothers controlling what their children see, which is what she was talking about. She didn't say that AEW should stop this or that AEW shouldn't do it. She said parents need to change the channel when their kids are watching this stuff. That's 100% how you handle the problem. Everybody attacked her because they can't read. What she said was, who would put a stop to this mothers by changing the channel. I mean, that's really all it is. Everybody got upset because she's criticizing AEW, and there is no legitimate criticisms of AEW. You're not allowed to. You have to sit back and you have to accept everything. That's going to be a subject for another day, however. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade.
Best house I ever drew, Daddy.